Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's DualShockers ShockCast. As you could tell, my name is not Luke and Taldi. This week you're getting some. It's just a two-man show this week.
Boy
So I'm
party.
your. Yeah, exactly. We're not going to call it that, Azario. You can call it that. That's fine. I'm your host this week, Ryan, and joining me today is Azario.
What's up, everybody?
The namer of the so-called boy party that we're gonna be having next week. Unfortunately, Giuseppe this week he's still in Japan, so he's not joining us tonight. And Lou is doing something. I'm assuming not in Japan. I'm assuming reviewing or something. I don't know. What do you think, Azario? What do you think he's doing?
He called me today, so I know what he's doing.
Oh, I see.
He's playing some basic board game or something. I don't know what he said, like charades or something. With I don't know what he's
Well,
doing.
clearly, he's not going to have as much fun as us tonight. So this
Yeah.
week, since it's a bit of a light news week, there hasn't really been a ton of big items to talk about. We're talking about Resident Evil this week, specifically Resident Evil 7, but also we might dive into some of the past games, some of our history with the series. So we're just going to start off first with what we've been playing. So Azario, do you want to go first and just let us know what you've been playing?
Yeah. I don't think anything that I'm reviewing right now is embargoed. So right now I'm reviewing Digimon Next World Order, or yeah, and then Tales of Berseria. I've been playing a lot of Berseria.
Those are two very anime games, I believe, as they're called, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
like
Oh, and I just put out my review. I put out my review on Tuesday of Dynasty Warriors God Seekers, an
oh yeah.
SRPG featuring the Dynasty Warriors cast. And goddamn, like I was not expecting like such a that game to be that as awesome as it is, because usually when companies don't do physical releases, you're kind of like, they probably don't back this game enough to like release it physically. And it surprised me, and it was amazing. I'm really glad that I got to play it and got to review it, because if I wasn't reviewing it, then I probably wouldn't have tried to play it for 20, 30 hours that I did. So
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Anything else that you're playing, or that's it?
Besides Resident Evil, I did beat I beat the, what is it, Birth by Sleep point two Kingdom Hearts.
Oh,
And
okay, yeah.
holy shit, like if you've played Kingdom Hearts 1, then you need to play Birth by Sleep 2.0. It's short. I beat it in 2 hours. It's very self-contained, but the nostalgia that this game like invokes on you, it's amazing. Very surprised. I was happy with it, and yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think with Kingdom Hearts, like, I mean, we aren't getting Kingdom Hearts 3 until like 2020 at least. So, I don't know. It's hard because like I want to play the stuff from 2.8 prologue that I haven't played. It's like the Birth by Sleep and not Dream Drop Distance. What's the other one that's on there? The
Um, the Kai or whatever.
Yeah, whatever the other like part of it is, because I played Dream Drop
Yeah.
Distance on 3DS, so I feel like I don't really need to play. I mean, although I'm sure it looks really good on PS4, I am tempted though because I think that they're coming out with the 1.5 and 2.5 HD remix like collection for PS4. I think so. I don't. Yeah, but they have
Yeah,
like all of them
they're putting
together.
1 and 2 out with like both. Like, it's gonna be a huge game.
Yeah, I feel like that might be something I might pick up for PS4
Yeah.
and like to I because I haven't played the original two
It
games in a long time.
it kind of sucks that they're releasing that like 2 months after this game, which I feel like would have been safer to release that game 2 months ago at least, and then kind of been like, okay, so you played that, because definitely Birth by Sleep 2.0 or 2.0 point, wait,
Whatever it is, yeah.
point two,
Point two
uh
something.
yeah, point two, that entry, man, it's definitely one that you will need to play the first one to even understand what is going on. It serves as a
Yeah.
prologue to the entire story, so I urge you to play Kingdom Hearts 1 before this game.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's. I think like really because if you're looking to play Kingdom Hearts 3, like 1 and 2 is like really all you need. Like you don't have to I think play the spin-offs, but they do have some kind of cool backstory things. Especially
Yeah.
I think out of all of them that I've played it, I feel like Dream Drop Distance is probably my favorite of them.
Really?
It's the most substantial. Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't really gotten to play Birth by Sleep, but I did play a little bit of like Chain of Memories and things like those. I think are more like kind of interesting experiments because they have very different gameplay compared to the
I
previous. Like Chain of Memories has like the card battling system
card
and
battle.
stuff like that. I think Dream Drop Distance is also the most like the previous games. Other than the drop system, which I'm not a super huge fan of. And it has a lot of really cool worlds too, which is like my favorite part of Kingdom Hearts are all the different like Disney worlds that they have.
I agree.
Yep.
Play these games.
Yeah. So as far as what I've been playing, I finished Resident Evil 7 last week, and obviously we're gonna get into that a little later. I reviewed that and gave that a 9.0 score, which I definitely was kind of wavering between like an 8 or a 9 because I think that there are a lot of really good things I like about Resident Evil 7, but a couple things that I don't quite like about it.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it was still really excellent. So, but again, we'll go into this in a little bit. But as for non-Resident Evil stuff I've been playing. A lot more Dragon Quest VIII because it's a huge game, and that's been like my commute. That's been my commute, my bedtime game. Basically, it's like I play it before I go to bed, and then when I'm on the train going to work, I've been playing a lot of that.
That's
Doing
the benefits of these mobile devices that you can take around with you. I agree. Like if you have a commute, get yourself a 3DS or a Vita. You'll
Yeah,
think yourself.
or a Switch coming up because that's what it. Hopefully we'll see. Maybe
Hopefully
not so.
you won't get
Not,
robbed on the subway holding that
maybe
huge thing.
No, I mean, Giuseppe will say otherwise because, especially if you're in Japan, because it seems that no one in Japan's gonna have one. But we'll see. I'm curious to see how many people, come March have a Switch. If I'll be seeing people. I hopefully will have one, so I'm sure I'll use it on my trips and stuff. So I've been playing Dragon Quest, and I also finally this week I got into The Last Guardian. I've been playing that because I've been meaning to play it since it came out. I just haven't gotten to it, and Last Guardian is an interesting game. Have you played it, right, Azario? Or
Yes, I have. You definitely need to be a pet owner if you
yeah.
if you want to enjoy this game.
Yeah, it was interesting because like I loved Shadow of the Colossus and I played Eco I think a year or two ago. And Eco I like, but there are definitely some problems I think with that, or at least it hasn't aged that well. I think is that Eco can be kind of a frustrating game to play now because it was kind
Yeah,
of its time. I think it's interesting how The Last Guardian feels like kind of a mix of those two games together, where it has kind of the escort like mission, not escort mission, but like you have a companion that's kind of with you throughout the game in The Last Guardian, and The Last Guardian kind of has the scale and like the climbing up the monster and things like that from Shadow of the Colossus.
yeah, and it's different because with Aiko you have you're kind of leading this girl somewhere, but in Last Guardian, I feel like it relies too heavily on this dog cat thing, bird
Trico.
Trico, to get you around. Whereas in Aiko, you got around on your own, and whether you wanted to leave that girl on her own or not was up to you. But with with Last Guardian, you're kind of at the mercy of Trico in most of the levels, especially the ones where you don't. You're like at a wall and you're like, how the hell do I advance? And then after 15 minutes of being frustrated, you climb on Trico and he just jumps up and takes you to the next area.
Yeah, that's definitely been one of the more I don't know if I want to completely say frustrating, but like more
Yeah,
challenging parts of the game is that
it,
because it relies so much on Trico, you have to kind of be in the right place with Trico because if you're not standing in like the exact spot he needs to go to or whatever, then he'll miss it or you'll end up. I remember there was one where I was in this like water pit and he has to dive
I
down to go
hate
underneath
that. That's
and
the
like
worst. That is
that
the
one
worst puzzle.
that was one of the worst ones because like basically like he kept missing the spot that I had to tell him to go down, so he just swam in circles around the pool, and I was like I got so frustrated with that. But other than that, I'm really liking the game a lot so far, and especially because I think it has the most kind of structure to it compared to Eco and Shadow of the Colossus, where those games the stories were very like mysterious and vague, and you kind of filled in the gaps a little bit. And Last Guardian still has that, but it has more of a story to it, I think, than like
Yeah,
the
and that in turn makes you want to complete it. You want to figure out this mystery of what's going on, and that kind of what guides you to pushing on through those harder scenes to get through. Yeah, that water level made me quit a few times just because the stupid thing. Well, at one point, it wouldn't eat the barrel, and I was like, God, it's right in front of me.
The barrels are also kind of annoying too. So
Please
far.
just
Like,
eat it because I know there's like I haven't checked, but I know there's definitely a trophy where you find all the
yeah, where you get all
barrels,
of them. Yeah.
and he just wouldn't eat it, and I couldn't get myself to just leave, so I ended up quitting a lot.
Yeah. I'm pretty far in. I'm like maybe 2/3, I think, through the way. So I've got a little bit left to go, but I definitely I'm excited to see how it ends. Hopefully with neither the boy or the Trico dying, as everyone has predicted for so long. Is like, um, but anyway, so I think we'll move on now and kind of go into our main topic, which is Resident Evil 7. So I've finished and reviewed the game, and Azario, you're still pretty much at the beginning, right?
Yeah, there's reasons for this though.
Before we go into Resident Evil 7, let's just talk a little bit about our history with the series as a whole, because Resident Evil 7 kind of takes a lot of departures from the previous games. You know, obviously the big one being the shift to first person perspective, but it still feels a lot of ways like a Resident Evil game. So let's just kind of go into that. So Zaria, what's kind of your history with Resident Evil? Have you played a lot of the older games? You know.
Yeah, the being well, like I will say now that I'm more into the JRPGs and stuff, but growing up, I grew up the first time I played Resident Evil, I was probably 10, and I was at a sleepover, and the guys are like, "Oh, we got a PlayStation, let's play Resident Evil." So they put it in, and I remember the first scene where the zombie, you kind of walk up to the back of the zombie, and he turns his head, and all of us in the room, us being 10 years old, we all screamed and turned it off. Like
Oh, I know. Yeah,
we
that was like.
and in my head, that was the scariest game I've ever seen. And I remember replaying the game and just not being that scared. And it kind of took it away from me. But I still hold on to that moment that was at that time the scariest game I've ever played.
Yeah, for
And
sure. I
that,
actually I had a similar sort of memory with a bunch of similar memories with the game like that where and you're totally right. I think playing it now like it doesn't quite have the same impact as it did, back then because, I think with Resident Evil with the original like there really wasn't anything else like it when it came out.
mm,
It for all intents and purposes it sort of invented the survival horror genre of, at least what we know it as today. And I remember the first experiences that I had with the game were with my a family friend who had it on Sega Saturn, not even on PlayStation, on Sega Saturn. And I was watching him play it, and I would be sitting there watching just like this with my eyes covered because like I couldn't handle it. And yeah, I totally had the same experience with like the first zombie that you encounter in that first room when it turns its head. I just could I like ran out of the room because I couldn't handle seeing that. It was crazy.
it's definitely something to note that like uh Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 all came out pretty close to each other. And then
Yeah, I think there's like
you
a
got into
couple.
like Code Veronica, and then you got into all those. But all those three games were all in the same engine. And then you had like what is that that Dino Crisis game came
Dino
out using
Crisis,
this.
yeah.
Yeah,
That was Resident Evil with dinosaurs, and
yeah,
I actually remember I wanted to play Dino Crisis. Really, I think I have it on Vita, and I just haven't played it. But I wanted to play those games as a kid, but I wasn't old enough yet because I
yeah,
was like, my grandparents wouldn't buy it or whatever because they were like, "Oh, you're not, old enough." I'm like, "Damn it." So
yeah. So the first three games, I remember like at least for 2 and 3, the chances that they took with a game like 2 also where you can choose a character and that chooses your disc to play, kind of makes that game so much bigger than people realize at the time. I remember like shit, like there's two stories here, and
yeah.
they're both equally hard and equally awesome because they send you in different places and you have different skills, and yeah, you have that choice system in the first one, but you kind of go along the same path with either lockpick.
Yeah, there's only like some slight differences between like Chris and
Yeah.
Jill. So
I always remember like I always hated how back then how Resident Evil starts you off with like you like starting in front of a burning building, and then 3 bullets, and then you have like
they're
10
just like,
zombies in front of you.
good luck. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how they start you off too. So if you think you're just gonna turn the game on and just leave it there, no, 3 zombies will come and kill you real quick. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I love beating it and beating it in under 3 hours and getting an infinite rocket launcher and then just like totally destroying. Yeah, there's I did that with the PlayStation 1. I can't play the new one that just came out on PS4. I suck. I suck at it. Like it's the GameCube version, and I don't.
The remaster, yeah.
Yeah, I just suck, and I'll admit it. You know, I'm not proud of. I'm not proud. Too proud to admit that I suck at that game.
Yeah, I was pretty when the I remember like with the remastered version coming out on game or the sorry with the remake coming out on GameCube and then the remastered version. I played the remastered version like maybe a year or so ago, and I played a couple hours of it, and I just got sidetracked. I want to go back and finish it because I think it's like it definitely captures the essence of what made the original so good. But definitely, I think the graphically it just looks so good. Like even now, even though it is like even the remastered, like being like 15 years old now, still looks really good. You know, because they made like the lighting really creepy and the character models and everything. So
yeah, I agree. Even Zero, they re-released Zero too, and Zero looks beautiful.
Yeah.
It does definitely look good.
I think it's also part because the original and Zero and like I guess we'll see what happens because they're doing the remake of Resident Evil 2 as well, and you know I think it's because both games had the pre-rendered backgrounds, and like even though they're kind of cheesy and like of like a certain period, like they still look really good. I think you know because of the art and everything. So Dalo in the comments said the REOG. I think even with how cheesy it is now, I think we're not only good horror games and like any other. It was a great mystery as it makes you wonder how did this happen and why. And also Dalo said the remake is the same game as Azario. So you know he's pointing that out there for like. I think it's like pretty much mostly the same, but like it has some
there's some different puzzles. No, I do not accept that.
But yeah, I actually my experience with the original games, the original game I played and was terrified, or at least I watched a lot of people play it and was terrified of. Eventually, I did play the original, and I played most of the remake. I never actually played a lot of Resident Evil 2 and 3. I've only seen and played like very small pieces of it. So those games I'd actually want to go back and play. I think I'll probably get them on like Vita or something like that and play them eventually. I'm definitely more familiar with the more recent games. So Resident Evil 4, which is easily probably one of my all-time favorite games. I've played that game 4 or 5 times, I think. Like I've played it way too many times, but Resident Evil 4, you know, I think at the time was just an amazing game. Even though, you know, for all the praise it gets for kind of revolutionizing the series, for bringing it more, and you know, for doing the new control scheme and all that stuff, it was also the game I feel like that kind of was responsible for the what we saw in Resident Evil 5 and 6, where they went more for an action focused, you know, for more of an action focus and try to be more third person shooters. Resident Evil 5, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, you were gonna say something?
Oh, well, with at least with 4, 5, and even 6, people say that they go into a more action oriented, and I get it, but I think that those games are just got super arcadey, and I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. 4 is amazing. 4 is an amazing game. Ashley, she's hot. I'll give you that.
You wanted to escort her all night long.
I'll escort her around for extra 10 hours. I don't even care. 4 was amazing. 5, I platinumed 5. I loved it.
I think 5 is fine. It's a bit boring, I think, if you play it by yourself, but as a co-op game, it's pretty enjoyable. I think the first or second time, I think the first time I played it, I was playing with a friend in co-op, and then it was fun. And then I went through and did another playthrough or two to get like the better weapons and things, and I was like, oh, this is a significantly more boring experience if you play it by yourself.
But it's definitely arcadey, and you don't take in 1, 2, and 3, and even Code Veronica. I remember when I go to doors and when I go to a new area, I'm on edge. You know, like I don't. If something approaches me, if something comes at me, I don't know if I'm well equipped enough to handle that. And that's the stress that those earlier Resident Evil games put on you. For 4, 5, and 6, I never felt that. I always felt that I was overpowered and ready for anything.
Yeah, Yeah, for sure. That was definitely one of the big problems I think with 4. Maybe not 4 as much, but 5 and
Yeah,
6
not four
definitely.
as much, but definitely 5 and 6.
Yeah, they basically
Four puts the pressure on you a little bit.
they like 5 and 6 like threw ammo at you basically whenever you needed it, so it really wasn't like, versus like when you go back to the original games and like you're like scrounging for, whatever ammo and things you can get. Dalo in the comments also says, I think RE4 is good, but I am not a fan. RE5 is good, but only with a co-op, with like, someone playing co-op. And RE6 sucks. He also said, GG in that RE5 plat. Even I have not done that. So good job, Azario, for getting
Yeah,
that platinum.
there's one trophy in there that you have to shoot a zombie with an arrow while they're in the air, and
Oh yeah.
that's the stupidest thing. I It's super hard. It took me a long time for that one.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I think that leads us into Resident Evil 6, which I think most people pretty much agree sucks. Not that I think it's not that I think it's like a completely terrible game, but I think 6 was definitely the one that most people noticed as being kind of the, I guess, kind of jumping the shark. That was kind of Resident Evil's moment where it
But
leaped
yeah,
over.
we all agree that it sucks. But funny enough, that was the best selling one. So
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, Resident Evil 6, they clearly sort of went more in the direction of like an action third-person shooter game because they, I think and Resident Evil is not the only series that did this. Like Dead Space did this too with Dead Space 3, where they kind of went more for an action focus
yeah,
because horror games usually don't sell, compared to things like Gears of War and shooters and things like that it was trying to emulate. Um, I think Resident Evil 6 isn't a completely bad game, but I think that there are a lot of major issues with it, like the action. Also, that game was way too long. That game was like 25 or 30 hours when they could have
yeah.
cut like a good
Just
amount of
play
it with.
Leon's story, and
Yeah,
you'll be good.
yeah. There were interesting. Who were was it? Chris and Jake were the other two. I forget who the
Yeah,
other. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that they had interesting parts, but it definitely got a little crazy. Dalo also says in the comments, he got the egg trophy in RE5, which I think I did too, or I got the achievement for it. I think. There was also, I remember in RE5 there was the egg glitch where I think there was the one with it was some kind of egg that you could keep duplicating in your inventory if you had a co-op partner. So you could just keep
Yeah.
duplicating it back and forth, sell them, and get like a ton of gold for it or whatever. So I used that to get like all of the like most powerful weapons and upgrade everything. And then Dalo also said, "How the hell do you mess up a great? How the hell do you mess up a game that puts Chris and Leon in the same game?" I agree, because I know that going into Resident Evil 6, that was kind of the thing I was looking forward to, is that for the first time you get to see like Chris and Leon in the same game, and they were
Yeah.
two of like the big characters, and I think that's just maybe speaks to Resident Evil 6 biggest problem, which is it just got so convoluted and kind of like they were spanning the globe, going on adventures, and it showed Resident Evil, I think, kind of needed a reboot, and that kind of leads us now to Resident Evil 7, which Capcom is kind of made to sort of bring the series back to its roots and everything. Resident Evil 7 takes place a couple years after the end of the sixth game, so it's interesting, I think, how this game doesn't completely do away with the Resident Evil lore that we've seen, but kind of reboot. It kind of straddles the line, I think, between being a sequel and a reboot. So what have you thought so far, Azaria, about Resident Evil 7 playing? I know you haven't gotten super far, and we'll try to
I
keep this
think
fairly spoiler free, but
yeah. So it will be spoiler free because I haven't even gotten that far.
yeah, yeah.
But I actually played it with share play with my friend who lives in another city. So she was watching and I was playing, and because I didn't want to be alone. Really, it
Yeah.
came down to like I haven't played it in VR yet. I have the VR, but I was so scared playing through that game. There's some moments that it's not even the game is scary. They just know how to put sounds in the right places, and using
Yeah.
the first person perspective, you might accidentally bump into a chair and not know that it's just you, and stuff like that. Um and that's funny because maybe in this new generation of video games you can't really scare people with a third person perspective anymore, and you need that immersion to actually freak people out now. Are we desensitized? I can't really think of a game recently, at least, that wasn't first person that I was truly scared, because Outlast freaked me out. PT
Yeah.
freaked me out.
I think it definitely like there is something to first person games using or sorry, to horror games using first person rather than a third person perspective, because it does create that effect where it is a little bit more immersive, and because you can't and the other big thing too, I think, with Resident Evil especially, is because the first person perspective limits your view, so you can't really see what's around you like you can in a third person game. So definitely for games like Outlast, Alien Isolation, things like that, it's a lot scarier because you can't see what's behind you or around you or anything. You can only focus on kind of what's ahead, so
Yeah,
it has like a scarier effect. Not that I say that I think, not to say that there wouldn't be scary third person games. Definitely Dead Space. Dead Space One especially was like, even though it's not super recent, I think that was probably one of the best horror games I've ever played in a long
I agree.
time.
And
And that
that's
was their
another one that
yeah.
uses sound. That's another one that uses sound to kind of
Oh yeah, for sure. I
freak
think
you
that
out a little bit.
I think more so than most other horror games I've played, like Dead Space. I think the sound design was like one of the best things about it, was because it really created the feeling that you're on this massive ship and everything, and you
And
don't,
you're alone.
you'd hear. It's interesting because some of the enemies in Resident Evil 7 kind of remind me a little bit of the necromorphs from Dead Space 1, where you hear this stuff banging around to the ship, and you can't really like, and even if there wasn't necessarily a monster that did like come and attack you or something, like it still gave you that unease, that there was like fear
Yeah.
of something waiting for you.
I will say that playing Resident Evil 7 with a good pair of headphones is amazing. That game really knows how to set
Oh
the
yeah.
mood. Especially like if you set your brightness correctly in the game settings too, they do some crazy stuff with the darkness in that game, and it's impressive. And for the people that compare this game to Outlast, get out, get out of here. Outlast is scary, I'll give it that, but it didn't give you a weapon, and you're just running around, and it got old real fast. I think
Yeah,
Outlast.
I think yeah, that definitely, I love Outlast. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
I think Alien Isolation also has the same kind of thing where for most of those both of those games, or at least Outlast, you don't get any weapons at all. You just have
Mhm.
the camera to kind of see what's ahead
Yeah.
of you, and
Outlast had a problem too, where the halls and stuff, they were too boring. It just got a little boring. Um,
yeah, I think the thing that works in Outlast's favor though is that it's short, so that it was only
that's
like a
true.
5 or
Yeah,
6
yeah.
hour game. I didn't finish the DLC for it, but I don't know if that changed anything. And then the Outlast 2 should be coming later this year, which I played a demo of last year. It was really really cool. Alien Isolation, I think, also had a similar thing where for most of that game you don't have any like at least strong weapons that can take out, like, because obviously the alien is like completely invulnerable to what you can do. But I think there is that, like what you said about like things getting redundant, where like I think if you spend most of your time running away from like the alien or the things chasing you, then you have to spend 5 minutes hiding in a closet or like under a bed and things like that, and they can get really old. I definitely had that in Alien, where I would go in a room, hide in a closet, wait for the alien to go away. I'd pop out and the alien would just immediately come back, and I'd have to go back in again, and that gets kind of old.
Yeah.
Um, I think Resident Evil, there is definitely, with Resident Evil 7, it does share some of that with those games, but they do it's actually a lot more combat focused, I think, than what the trailer showed, and it gave more the impression that would be more like Outlast or Amnesia or something like that, where you have to like hide and stuff like that. And there is, but I think it's surprising how there's a lot more combat than I thought. Really quick in the comments, we just Dalo said that I have not gotten RE7, mostly because I've spent too much in the last month. It's been a busy month. There's been a lot of games out, so I don't blame you, Dalo. But he said, but feel it is an okay game for a new gen. My question is, how does this affect Resident Evil 2 remake gameplay wise? Just really quick, I don't think that RE7's gonna have a huge effect on RE2 remake. I think they're gonna stick with third person. I think it's gonna be more like the Resident Evil HD remaster and the RE0 remaster. I think they'll keep it pretty Other than obviously redoing the graphics and things like that, because Resident Evil 2 is still a PlayStation game, so I think they're going to keep it pretty close to what the original game was. I don't think they're going to do anything radical with that game.
I want them to go for Code Veronica, which is my favorite Resident Evil.
See, yeah, I never played that either, but
that game is amazing. Amazing characters, amazing story, setting great. Claire, she's hot. You know?
I mean, yeah, I didn't play. Did you play Revelations at all, or Revelations 2?
Yeah, I played the first one on 3DS, I believe. And then...
I did the same too. Yeah, I didn't play Revelations 2, which that was actually the first game they tried to do an episodic release for it originally. Yeah. And Claire is in that game. I haven't played I haven't played Revelations 2 yet, though I want to get to it at some point.
Revelations just proves that they can make a classic Resident Evil whenever they want. And okay, yeah. I get it. You can.
Yeah, because I think Revelations actually came out the first one I think came out the same year as RE6, and most people agreed that Revelations was the better Resident Evil game of the two, compared to Resident Evil 6. But anyway, yeah. So going back into RE7, I think now that I've finished the game, I think I could definitely the strongest part of it for me was sort of the feeling of, that. When Resident Evil 7 was first announced and shown, the switch to a first-person perspective and things like that had a lot of people concerned that they thought like this game wouldn't feel like Resident Evil because it was so radically different from what we've seen from the series before. But I noted in my review, I think, how Resident Evil 7 really actually captures a lot of what made the original game so scary. And it definitely feels more like a Resident Evil game, I think, than 5 and 6 and even 4 to an extent, because this game kind of feels more scaled back and intimate like the first game was, because the first game you were basically only in the Spencer mansion and like the parts around it, and Resident Evil 7, the Baker family, who's kind of the main antagonist that you run into, they have this plantation that you explore, and it feels in a lot of ways like the Spencer mansion. It's not a big, like, if you were to look at like I think the map of like the areas you explore and stuff, it's not that big, but it's very dense and you get to explore a lot. So what have you felt so far, Azario, about kind of the environments you explore and the mansion?
I love the map in the game, how it's the original like Resident Evil map. It's very the game looks super real, but the map is just like classic Resident Evil. When you pull it up, it's a good ode. Also, the developers of this game really paid attention to classic horror movies that I've noticed.
Yeah.
Like Chainsaw Massacre, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, stuff like that. And I really respect that sense that they're paying attention to this, and I feel like they were having fun with this game and playing through it. Just the setting, you walk into a room and you don't want to rush through this room. You don't want to just see if anything's clickable and then rush out like you would do in like Fallout or other games that that do this kind of stuff. You walk into a room, and I've noticed that the way I play it, at least, is I look around at everything on the walls, on the desks, and you can see the work that was put into constructing each room of these mansions, and that's what makes the game feel so much bigger. I think is that even though these different mansions are kind of small, they're different houses, right? Like you start off in the guest house and then you go on, I believe.
Yeah, you do go, like, you start off in for most, like, a good amount of the game in like sort of the main house, but then you do go on to like different parts of the the area that they own.
Yeah. So with that, like, I mean, I think it feels much bigger because you're looking up close, whereas for other Resident Evils, you're kind of at the mercy of the camera, wherever it wants to go, pretty much. But this, you can, I don't know. I just like, that's what I like mostly about it, and I think that setting and theme of the game really pays off in how scary it is, because I'll admit that I was screaming. Like, I screamed a few times. It's I woke up my roommate playing it, and it was like 12:30 at night, I think, and I turned it off after a while because I was just super scared. And it wasn't even that. I don't even think I was fighting anybody yet, and just the setting and every corner that I turn, there's that possibility that something can pop up right there. Um, they did good. This game's good. Give it
Yeah.
a give it. If you don't like horror games, I can understand why you want to stay away from this though.
Yeah, for
Because it's
sure.
not
I
going to
think
be for everybody.
it's definitely much more a return to the form, to the horror, and the horror elements that made the original game so scary. And yeah, actually, Dalo in the comments said, he mentioned like Hills Have Eyes as another horror movie that this kind of, and like you said, I think that they drew a lot of really cool. Different kind of influences from horror movies that we haven't seen in the previous Resident Evil games, where the original felt more like George Romero kind of like zombie movies, things like Night of the Living Dead, things like that. And this one definitely feels closer to something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hills Have Eyes, and I think a big part of that is because you're fighting against the Baker family, who are like the main antagonists, and they're very different than other. I know you. I think you're not really far enough yet to. I don't think you've met them, right? Or
No,
seen
I've
them.
just met
Yeah,
the.
you're still pretty early. So without going into too much spoiler territory, the Bakers are this family that you run into in the game that own the mansion that you're exploring. The main character.
You've seen them in screenshots.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They've been in all the trailers. They've been in all the screenshots. So you definitely, it's not spoiling saying that they're in this. And even in the beginning hour demo, you kind of got brief glimpses of them. And so the main story in the game is with the character Ethan, and he's looking for his wife Mia, who's disappeared, 3 years before. Which is also funny that it was pointed out to me that her name is Mia, as in MIA, as in missing in action. I totally did not pick up on that at first. So when it was pointed out to me, that
so
was like
cringy.
I was like, like how did I miss that? But the Bakers, I think, are really cool, and they were one of my favorite parts of this game, is because they had just because they had that really cool vibe of like they felt like the family from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hills Have Eyes, where they were just like, they were really unpredictable and crazy, and but they do have an interesting backstory that you kind of explore throughout the game, and kind of again, without spoiling anything, you kind of you discover more about why the way they are, why are they the way they are, the sort of the dynamics between them, because they're kind of this crazy, cannibal family, and they all tie into the game in really interesting ways with gameplay, because kind of similar to Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, a lot of times they'll pursue you throughout the mansion. So Jack, for example, the father, in the beginning of the game, he'll like burst through walls and he'll come chasing you and things like that, and so you kind of have to run away, or you can stun them for a little while by shooting them with bullets, and that like puts them down for a couple seconds so you can run away. But they're like this persistent force that kind of chases you, and you're kind of on edge all the time because you're not sure when Jack's gonna come through a wall, or Margaret, the mom, is gonna like chase you with a lantern or things like that. So they definitely make it really an interesting experience.
I do not want to experience that. I think.
I mean, you're gonna have to, Azario. You're gonna have to man up and just do it. It's like
It's really hard. Like, oh man, virtual reality sucks, guys. Like with scary games, because that's all you really want to play is scary games in VR. But I can't even bring myself to do it.
Yeah, I don't have a PlayStation VR, but I definitely would be. I'd be very interested in trying out the game. In VR. I didn't get to play. Or I played beginning hour, but not in VR, and I didn't play the lantern demo. And I just remember people saying that they were scared out of their minds in the lantern demo. So I can only imagine playing, what this game would be like playing it in VR, since you can go through the whole entire thing, with VR if you wanted to.
Mhm.
And it seems like I definitely have heard people saying that they got motion sick playing this, and I think
Yeah.
that's I think that's also dependent on people whether they get motion sick or not. But it didn't seem as bad as, 'cause I remember when the first demos were coming out, a lot of people were complaining about motion sickness and saying that it was not well optimized. It seems like they fixed it a little bit more for this release, but it's still not quite there.
Yeah, I got sick. I got sick playing the demo. So
Yeah, I
there's
didn't.
some camera tricks that they have in the settings that help it out, but
Yeah.
you're going to be playing for like 30, 40 minutes, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that's generally what I've heard people say, is play for like 15, 20, 30 minutes around there. But like, it's interesting, I think, because Resident Evil feels like Resident Evil feels like the first like kind of big substantial VR game that's come out. Since everything else that's come before have been kind of these shorter, more tech demo-y experiences, and this is more of a fully like this is a full game that you could play in VR, and we haven't really seen that.
And that's interesting that that you would expect Western developers to kind of pick up VR and run with it, but um, since Japan kind of lagged getting into the HD games, especially with PS3 and developing games for that, it took them a while to actually get good at this new technology.
Are you telling Japan to get good? Is that the
Well, no, I think I think it's switched with virtual reality because now with VR you see these great games like Ace Combat and Resident Evil 7 that can run completely in virtual reality, and I'm not seeing that from Western developers. Like, why won't Bethesda release a virtual reality version of Skyrim? I mean, come on, wouldn't someone love to play that?
I think we will. I think it's more just VR is still kind of uncharted territory for a lot of places. Like it hasn't really caught on in a huge mainstream way yet because it's still very early. So there isn't a huge install base for it. It's still more of an enthusiast thing, and I think honestly, like we're still seeing, because the technology is just so early in its life cycle. I think we're not really going to see a lot of huge VR experiences yet. I think we'll get stuff like Resident Evil and things like that do offer kind of more meaty VR experiences. But I think for the most part, we still have to kind of see a title that we still haven't really seen a title yet that's like this is what VR is made for. Resident Evil, I think, has proven that in some ways, but
yeah, Sony needs to stop closing studios and start building some good VR games. Not these rigs or whatever else they've done that's first party. They need to get someone to do a VR game, a full VR game, not just to rely on these third parties or these small experiences. Like, I don't consider Job Simulator an actual game. You're just sitting
right.
there,
It's
Resident Evil is a full game. It's not like, I don't know. I'm just hoping that Sony doesn't drop this like they did the Vita and just wait for other people to develop for it. I think Resident Evil 7 is a good testament to show that what this thing is capable of, and I think it's a great way to play games, but I'm just too scared. I'm just too scared to do Resident Evil.
Yeah, I mean it's only natural with like VR games with something like Resident Evil being a good match for it, because horror games, like horror and VR just they go together really well. Whether or not you want to play it in VR is another story, because obviously it's way more terrifying in VR, and I've heard a lot of really positive things about the game in VR. And it's interesting actually with Resident Evil Net, which is the site that's like a stat tracker for people that play online, so you could like track there's like leaderboards and stuff like that. But they revealed some stats where I think it's around like 10% of the people that sign up for Resident Evil Net are playing in VR. So it's actually pretty good. That's like they're basically at 1 in 10 people playing it in VR, which is cool. I didn't think it would be that high. I thought it honestly would be a little bit lower, but so I think that's an encouraging sign so far of people playing it and supporting VR.
That raises a question though. I know it's a little early to be talking about this, but Resident Evil as a series will continue past this. Would we want to see the series just continue to do first person gameplay? Like, is this the direction of the Resident Evil series now? I don't know.
It is definitely a very interesting question to think about that.
Because this isn't a spin-off. This is a mainline game.
No, this is a mainline game, and obviously they've done a pretty radical shift to to a new perspective and things like that. So, without going into a very big spoiler at the end of the game, I think it's very clear that obviously they're going to make another one, just based on how they end it. As far as the changes, Resident Evil 7 has gotten a lot of I think Resident Evil has gotten a lot of praise, not just because of the the new perspective and things like that they've done, but because the game has brought Resident Evil back to more to its survival horror roots and everything. So I think based on the reception and things like that, I think that they're definitely going to stay with the first person perspective. But I think also like a lot of the novelty of Resident Evil 7 has been that sort of that because it's such a big change from what we see in the previous games. Like how will Resident Evil 8 follow this up? I don't really know. Maybe they'll introduce co-op again to the series or something like that. I don't know. It's a good question though. Like where we'll see. I think they're still going to stick with what they've introduced in Resident Evil 7 because obviously Resident Evil 7 has already seen like a pretty big success for Capcom. We don't really know financially yet. It seems like it's doing pretty well though. But creatively, like the reviews for the game have been very very positive. Dalo says in the comments, I expect it to be FPS with that new RE engine until it falls apart again like Resident Evil 6 and they have to remake itself again, which I hope doesn't happen, but, it could always, maybe that they'll do this for a couple more games and then, I'd hope that they don't kind of go the route of Resident Evil 6 where it kind of just gets too like unwieldy and bloated and kind of falls apart.
I wouldn't mind a light gun experience based in the Resident Evil engine. I would the Resident Evil 7 engine, just a little $15 little side game.
I was to say, so are you asking for what were those games? Umbrella Chronicles and there was the other one, the ones
Dead
for the
Eye
Wii
or whatever.
Dark something, those two games. So you want those basically, but the PS4 versions of those.
Definitely. I would like to see a little small game like that come out. Just for something to play in virtual reality. And you know that for Resident Evil, at least the mainline series, they take about 3 or 4 years to develop. So it's kind of safe to say that we might not see another Resident Evil mainline game until the end of the PS4 and Xbox One life cycle.
That's true. Yeah.
Around 2020, 2021, unless this does really well and they start yearly releasing this thing, which I hope they don't. Just sit back.
No, I think they're
remakes. Give us some remakes to hold us off. And...
I think they're gonna take their time. Like they definitely seem like I think that worked in Resident Evil 7's benefit, where it was clear. I think they took their time with this game and really looked at it and was like, okay, what can we change to to improve on the series and kind of reinvigorate it. I think also because I think VR for support for the other platform, for PC at least, isn't going to come for a year. I think they have the exclusivity on PlayStation VR for quite some time. So I think it'll be a while, I think, until we see another. I don't think we'll get yearly releases, but maybe like in 2-3 years. So if we see another one. But yeah, I'll be curious to see how they kind of. I think that with the next game, they'll definitely bring it closer. I think more toward the storyline of the previous games. Because Resident Evil 7 for the most part kind of feels like a standalone game where it does reference and have little Easter eggs to the previous games in the series, but it's mostly kind of its own story. So I think that maybe that the next game they'll kind of bring it closer to the previous games, but story-wise, but maybe the gameplay they'll still kind of improve on this new like first-person perspective they have.
They need to chill on this a little bit. But I respect the chance that they took with releasing this game as a first person, and it came out with a lot of hate because people compared it to other games, but you know what? It actually released, unlike those other games like PT. So, well done, Capcom.
Yeah, I think definitely and I think that was a big part of what led in the review to me looking at the game really favorably. I think was just the fact that this game was definitely risky for Capcom for that they took a big chance on kind of giving a very very different interpretation of Resident Evil than we've seen before. And I think for the most part that paid off. There's a couple things in the review that I wasn't really a huge with the game I wasn't a huge fan of, like the puzzles, which are a little easy. There aren't really any majorly very difficult ones. They're all pretty self-explanatory and basically just find the key and put it in this door, and they're not very difficult. And boss fights in the game are also not super great. They're pretty. Actually, you mentioned before, Azario, about the one in the beginning with Mia when you fight her, and you kind of just the enemies are very bullet spongy, which I feel like, I mean, Resident Evil has had that a lot with their boss fights, but I feel like they've had a little more creativity or things that you kind of had to do to beat them, and this just kind of feels like shoot them in the head until they're not there anymore. Like that's about it. So
um, yeah, I've heard that the puzzles are easy. I don't I don't technically remember being stuck on any puzzles in the past Resident Evils, except for ones like the Jill sandwich. I
yeah,
sometimes I forgot to put the shotgun there. I mean,
yeah,
that's on me though.
yeah.
Uh, but I'm excited to see where the series goes from here, and I'm glad that this game exists. And if I'm rating it on a horror game, I'm gonna say it's one of the scariest games that I've ever played. And
It is definitely pretty scary. Like they did a good job, I think, at kind of bringing back the horror that made the original game so scary. One thing in particular, and it was actually funny because I read an article about an article on Kotaku about this with the doors, and when you open and close doors and you kind of have that animation and stuff. Like it's a little thing, but I think it's cool because it actually reminds me a lot of the original, like the door opening loading screen that was in the original games. It kind of reminds me of that because like they do a really good job of making them like you're like, oh, like I actually was afraid to open doors in this game because I was afraid of like what would be on the other side, like more so than other games.
Yeah, that's one of the scenes that I was most afraid of, when walking down a staircase and you kind of hear like breathing.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh fuck! And I just turn around and walk right back up. There's this scene where you see Mia in a room, and he's like, Mia, and like, okay, it's right at the beginning of the game, but I just said no. I'm not gonna unlock that door. I'm just gonna continue. I passed her right up.
Yeah, I think it was funny in the comments for the review that I did of the game, where a lot of people were like saying like, oh, if I was Ethan, I would have noped so hard at going there.
Yeah,
I would have been like,
he must have. They must have really been in love, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because there's like the part in the beginning when you come across that big gate where it's made out of like animal parts and things, that people were like, if I was there, I would have been like, nope, I would have turned around. Like, good luck, honey. Like, that's about it. So, but yeah, I think that definitely speaks to how, like Capcom did a really good job making this game kind of recapture what made the original game so scary. Just not even just graphically and things like that, but just gameplay wise, and even the things like item management and them making ammo so sparse. Like, there's definitely, I haven't even played on the higher difficulties where they make ammo even more like scarce, but like when I was playing in the game on normal, I feel like I had a hard time a lot getting ammo, or they would put it at just the right times where it was like, I was like desperately needing ammo.
They hide them very well too.
Yeah, that was one of the things when you
gotta look around.
Yeah, that was when you mentioned before about how you really have to kind of investigate and look around, because there's an item in the game, I forget what it's called, but it reveals all the locations of items around you, so you can find stuff. And I had thought, like, I remember looking through rooms and being like, oh, I found everything, I'm good. And then I used that and saw hundreds of markers around all over the place, and I was like, oh no, I did not find everything clearly. So but yeah, I think we're gonna start wrapping this up. Any other thoughts, really quick? I know you still have a long way to go to finish the game, but just any other thoughts to kind of close out on Resident Evil 7?
I'm yeah, like I said, I'm glad it exists, and I think the game is very well made, and I'm excited to see Capcom kind of bring this game back to what fans want it to be, and not necessarily what the vast majority wants the game to be. Because like I said, Resident Evil 6 is the best selling Resident Evil, but fans of the series hate that game.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess they could have just continued to put out this game and made great sales, but the fact that they didn't means a lot. For it means a lot to me as a gamer, definitely. And yeah, scariest game I've played in a long time.
Yeah, I think it's overall, I was really happy with how the game turned out. I think there was a lot of uncertainty with this game because it's just so different than what we've seen from the series. But playing it and finishing it, it's definitely clear that they got it right of kind of going back to their roots and sort of it's not that dissimilar at all from the previous games. It feels much closer, I think, than what we've seen from Resident Evil 5 and 6 in terms of tone and scares and things like that. It's not quite as action focused as the previous games. Um, and even that, I think this was really kind of the first big game release for the entire year. Like we've had other stuff obviously, but this was like kind of the first big AAA release in January, a time when we don't normally get a lot of huge big games. And I think that they released at a good time, and I'm really excited that this is kind of the first game to kind of kick off the year, and excited to see what we get from it. Yeah, all right. So I think we're gonna start wrapping up really quick. We're just gonna go through the new game releases for the next week. Not a ton. I think we're hitting a pretty we're hitting a slower time right now. But later February has a lot of stuff. So quickly to go over the new releases coming up. We've got Fire Emblem Heroes, which is coming out for Android and iOS. That's the Fire Emblem mobile game that was announced like a week or two ago.
Meh.
That's the response. You don't want mobile Fire Emblem, Azario?
Did you see the microtransactions on that game?
No, I did not. I'm sure they're really bad, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. I think I actually heard. I think that the Animal Crossing game that was supposed to come out got delayed. So we're not sure when we're gonna see that. But
DNA's taking over.
I guess, yeah. So we got Fire Emblem Heroes. We've got Poochie. That's on the 2nd so that's actually tomorrow. Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World on 3DS, which is coming out on the 3rd. House of Many Doors for Windows and Window and Mac, and Husk for Windows. That's it for the rest of the week, and then next week we're getting Atelier Sophie, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Book for Windows. Did you review that, or
No, I reviewed Shally Plus on the Vita.
Oh, okay.
This is Sophie was released on the PS4 last year.
Oh, okay.
Very fun game. Different battle system for fans that like it. I enjoyed the characters. Plucked as a babe.
Yep. Cool. So we've got Knights of Azure for Windows, Splasher for Windows, WWE 2K17 for Windows, and then one of the big games for this month is Neo for PS4, which is coming out on the 7th, or sorry, the 9th. I know a lot of people looking forward to that, so which will be cool to see. So
I'm pretty excited to get into that. Sucks that Sony took it over, just for the case that like we could get so much more Neo coverage.
Yeah, but it's I think it still looks good,
because now Koei Tecmo won't talk to me about it. We have to go through many other doors to talk about Neo. Excited for this.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I think most people kind of say it's Samurai Dark Souls pretty much. But it looks cool, and I've heard it's pretty difficult. So it's not that far away. It's only a week away, and then lots more coming up in February. But that's gonna be it for this week's show. A couple social media plugs. You can find us as always on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at DualShockers. You can find us on YouTube at DSTV Originals, and then on Twitch you can find us at DualShockers Live. And join us for the ShockCast, like you can tonight, or have watched us tonight. Talk about Resident Evil and anime and all the other interesting things.
Best girls,
best girls, boy parties, things like that. We record the show every Wednesday at 8:30, unless we say otherwise. Really quick before we close out, I'll just read Dalo's comments because they're pretty funny. So he said he got his digital pre-order in for Neo, so obviously he's prepared. And he also called Yoshi's Woolly World Yoshi's Woolly Butthole, which I think is just really funny.
I laughed a little bit at that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. So, all right, so we're gonna close out. So you can find me at Ryan Leitzler on Twitter and other places. Azario, where can we find you?
You can find me at Azario Says, and check out my Dynasty Warriors Godseekers review. Also, I will have Berseria and Digimon out this week. By this week, we'll have it out. Also, we're on Metacritic, Ryan. We didn't.
Oh yes, actually.
Lou's not here. Really well, I'm sure he'll bring it up next week.
I will plug that. So in case you didn't see on the site, we reached a pretty big milestone this week where we reached 1,000 reviews officially, which is a pretty cool accomplishment. And we're also now on Metacritic, so you can go find our reviews there. all of our they're gradually being added to Metacritic, so you won't see them all right away. They'll be over the course of the next couple days and weeks and stuff. But yeah, that's also for all of our reviews, past, present, and future. So you can go check us out there, which is really cool. We're really happy about that we're doing that now. So you can read Azario's anime reviews on Metacritic. There's tons of stuff to look forward to. So.
Also, for anyone who's still listening, I just got an email. DualShockers is the first American press to be invited to Spike Chunsoft's first American press event next month, at the end of next month during GDC. So
very nice.
Expect great things from DualShockers around that time.
Yeah. You can actually also check out, speaking of which, Giuseppe's in Japan right now, and he was at the Final Fantasy 30th anniversary event. He did some cool coverage there. I'm sure he's still going to be doing a bunch of other things. So you can check that out throughout the week. All right, so with that, we're going to close out. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this week, and we will see you next week, hopefully with a more full crew. So this is just
I don't know. I think we did pretty good. I don't think we actually need anybody else.
Oh, we could just make it a boy party every
week.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure we'll probably have Giuseppe and Lou back on, or at least Lou.
Maybe.
But yeah, we'll see. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks for joining, and catch us next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.